The Voice Teacher Podcast.
Hey there, and welcome to the Voice Teacher Podcast. I am your host, Amy Geddes, and I am a board member of the International Voice Teachers of Mix, and I am so happy to be here with you today. Now, something that I would like to talk about that is often confusing for teachers and for students. This message is for teachers using teacher talk to their students, because as we all know, students don't understand things on the same level as our medical and science professionals, and we love them for that. And they don't really need to understand that. It's okay. And as teachers, I think while it's so important for us to understand the basic science of the voice, and hopefully more than basic science, I think something that we need to be best at is communicating what something feels like in a way that the student will understand it. So I'm going to ask for forgiveness for maybe some terms that I might use that might not be completely scientifically accurate, but I hope that our teachers out there and singers as well might get some value from this and gain a greater understanding of how they can use this concept to sing better. Isn't that what we're here for, right? We want to sing better. So the concept I want to talk about today is vowel narrowing. Now, this concept can go so many ways. So when I first started to sing, or when I first had a mixed voice teacher in high school, we started learning about vowel narrowing. And my understanding at the time was that you squish everything in and you kind of fish lip it, and that will make it narrow. And then fast forward 8-9 years, and now I'm teaching, and I've been teaching for a while, and Dean Kalin, the IVTOM president, says to me something like, well, the back can, as long as the back is narrow, the front can do whatever it wants. And that blew my mind. I thought, no, how do you keep your vowel narrow? You can't be smiling and have your vowel be narrow. Okay, so I thought about that. And then John Henney explained the concept of the undervowel and overvowel, along with Ken Bozeman and the chiaroscuro. And so line upon line, everything has kind of started to meld together. I heard another voice teacher on YouTube one day. She was demonstrating how to sing this Adele song, and it was a hard one where many students often struggle. And she said, hug it in. And I thought, well, that's vowel narrowing too, isn't it? And then I thought, well, what exactly are we hugging in? What are we narrowing exactly? And then I thought about that, and I realized that if I told my students to pay attention to their soft palate, or the hangy ball in the back of your throat, your uvula, the fleshy stuff back there, whatever word you need to use to make sense to the student, right? Because that's who we're talking to, that's who needs to know. So I say, pay attention to that, and I want you to bring your tongue really high in the back of your mouth, close to that soft palate, close to the squishy stuff. And then I started saying, now bring the sides in. Bring the tonsils in. That's probably not accurate, okay? That's probably not really the right thing to say. But in my mind and in their mind, it makes sense, because now we have this small space back there. We have the tongue and the roof of the mouth are very close together. We have the side walls hugged in. And so you can feel that by going, kind of bringing that all in. Try it now. I won't judge. Make all the sounds you want. You're probably in your car, but try that. And you can take that further to like, ew. And what you create is sort of a semi-occluded vocal tract feeling back there. So you can do this with you, and you're bringing that sound in. And again, here's where I'm going to probably explain something incorrectly, but it makes sense to me and it makes sense to my students. Because when you think about that, you bring all those fleshy things together, and you've got a narrowness happening in the back of your throat, in the back of your mouth. And so that's getting the tongue out of your throat. You're getting the space back there small. So if I want to sing something big, something that I've been singing lately, like Don't Rain on My Parade or All Falls Down from Chaplin. So if I have a don't bring around a cloud, if I have that ew, I've got it small. Okay, I've got to get the back small, because then, as I learned along the way, right, you can have that wide open front. So a small back and a wide front. Don't bring around a cloud to rain on my parade. I can open the front all I want, but I get that in. We often help our students accomplish this with like a cry sound. It does the same thing. And when I realized that okay, I'm having students do this cry, this whimper, this yeah or yeah sound. You use the y, the w, and it does the same thing. John Henney just gave a really great podcast about the sliders, or the sometimes vowels, the W and the Y. I highly recommend listening to that for a more in-depth look at those consonants that function very much like a vowel. So if you have that yeah, 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 I can get really big in the front. And that's where I think so many students misunderstand when we're talking about narrowing the vowel. What we need them to do is really, we want to narrow in the back, okay? And then we can drop the jaw, give it that really full sound, ah, for those big belty sounds. So we have a narrow under vowel and a wide over vowel. So if we put this into practice in some other songs, and this is something that I often teach, because students that come to me very often want to belt, or teachers want to figure out, how do I get that belty sound? How do I get that in there? And we're talking about bringing it in small before you layer on the big. And a lot of times where I think you'll find that your students are going wrong is that they're trying to be big all the way through. So I think it's useful to get the small first, get the little stuff going, and then layer it with the big, okay? Drop the jaw, go wide. Guess what? You can smile as big as you want. You can smile so big as long as the back is narrow. So if we're singing something like Defying Gravity, I have not practiced this for a while, so let me just try here. If you have, I think I'll try defying gravity. Or, okay, that's an easy part of the song, but still, you could get stuck there because students want to go, I think I'll try. And so you tell them to narrow it out. And sometimes you get, I think I'll try, which may encourage them to let go too much. So we want to encourage them to feel that huggy feeling. So don't be afraid to tell them to hug it in. Make it focused, make it in that ew, somewhat semi-occluded. And that will do wonders for your students, and it might do wonders for yourself. Some of you are probably going, I already knew that, and I'm glad that you already knew that. But some of us have been learning that along the way. And so I just think it's so exciting to take a concept that has been introduced to me over and over and over my 22 years of teaching, and to have a new light on it, a new way to say it. Because I tell you what, when I started explaining it that way to my students, about hugging it in, about bringing the soft squishy stuff together in the back, that's when they started to get it. That's when they started to understand that, oh, okay, these bigger sounds, these higher frequencies need this small space to really get the punch and the ping on it. And then opening up to get the depth and the fullness. All right, now moving on from vowel narrowing, I wanted to make this a two-part episode and talk about another concept that has been really useful in my studio. And it's kind of an approach that I have decided to call the what if concept. Now, as we all know, our students come to us from various backgrounds and various schools of thought about what singing should be. And sometimes this can range from very healthy to very unhealthy mindsets. Things that very often leave singers feeling like they've hit a wall or they don't know what to do. Sometimes they're very fixated on how this vowel should sound. Sometimes they get too caught up in narrowing the vowel. They think, oh, I didn't do that right. Or they have really strong concepts in their mind between what's right and wrong. They have these ideas that if I flip, I'm done. My career is over. And they get really traumatized by these notions that something is wrong with them or something in their education has led them astray, or they may blame a past teacher, they may blame themselves, and that's not very healthy. And so I have started talking to students with different language. Now, mind you, I use many of the same techniques that have worked for me over the last 2 decades, but how I approach them with the singer has become a little bit different. I've started saying, what if? Well, what if you just tried this? So say I've got a singer who is really light and they're used to maybe doing a lot of choral singing, and I reassure them that choral singing is great. You should sing in choir, sing all the time. Now, maybe your choir teacher wants a very light sound, or he wants a sound that's very, very back, or maybe even by other standards of singing, very wide. And I try to encourage them, well, there's nothing wrong with that in that setting. As long as you're not in pain, then it's fine. Is it hurting your voice? Do you feel weakened after? No, no, no. They're doing great. They feel good after they sing in choir, but they don't want that sound all the time. And that's fine. That's legit. You know, we don't sing with the same voice, quote unquote, voice for every style of singing. We have to use it differently. We have to use different approaches for different styles. And there's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes our students don't believe that. They don't think that it's okay to sing with a different approach sometimes. So what I might tell this choir student is, okay, what if you just tried saying the words in a voice like, what if you just sounded like a crybaby? Or what if you just put a little bit more yeah on the sound? What might happen? What do you think would happen if you tried that? Well, let's try it and find out. And so they'll say, yeah, 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 yeah. And they might have more of that yeah as opposed to yeah, 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 yeah. And then all of a sudden they're going, well, that was different. And then I ask them, how did that feel? I always want my students to gauge how does that feel? And I give them a range. I say better, same, worse. And if it feels worse, why? If it feels better, why? Or what did you notice? And that kind of self-reflection really helps students say, oh, well, that wasn't so bad, or I don't know if it was better. Sometimes they have no idea if something is better or not, and that's okay too. They are justified in not feeling anything because how should they know? Unless you tell them that's what that feels like or that's what's going on, how should they know? So it's okay to put responsibility back on the students so long as you walk that line of responsibility with them and help them understand what it is they're feeling. Even if your description may be scientifically inaccurate, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you help them label it. And once they label it, then they now have this tool, this power to go into their toolbox and say, what if I pulled out that nya, nya, nya feeling? And then they could go, okay, that y brings my tongue a little higher. It narrows the vocal tract and helps you get a little bit more punch in your sound. It brings the vocal cords together. Okay, so if I'm singing Amazing Grace and my choir at school or church once said, Amazing Grace, but then I've been asked to sing it as a solo at a funeral, and it doesn't work to sing it that light. I don't maybe want so much breath in there. And so I can have them try, okay, say, nya, 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 instead of Amazing Grace, which might work beautifully for the choir. Maybe not. Maybe that's not the sound the choir director wants, but whatever the choir director wants, they can give them that and feel okay about it. They can feel that it's okay to follow directions. What's important is knowing your voice, knowing what triggers what for you, and then pulling out of that toolbox and say, what if I use this tool? What if I tried this? And does that give me the result that this music director, choir teacher, theater director wants? Or now I'm singing something for myself or a different crowd, something else. Can I pull out the tools to use that? So going back to Amazing Grace, if I have Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. Now I've got a lot more connection in there. And I've got some more of that, the yeah, 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 as opposed to ooh, which takes me to a different acoustic combination. And what if you used both of those? What if you used them both in the same song? What if you used one in choir and what if you used one as a soloist? See, it's okay. Students need to know that it's okay to try things. And rather than feel this pressure of, I have to please my teacher, I have to do the things that they tell me exactly how to do it. And if I don't do it, they're going to correct me, or they're going to tell me not to do it this way, or they're going to be like, no, that wasn't what I said to do. I wanted a nah, 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 and you didn't do that. That's going to send them away running for the hills, finding somebody who understands, looking for someone who understands them. So I've really come to enjoy this what if concept. What if you just tried this? What if you dropped your jaw a little bit here? What if you focused your vowel a little bit more, just with your lips? Okay, what if you imagined hugging a straw in the back of your throat to get that narrow? What if you tried this one? This one's fun. That one's fun. What if you tried that? You'll find that you get a lot of resistance. It's like an extreme SOVT. And for some people, it works great. What if it doesn't work? So try something else. There are so many tools that teachers have available that they can give to their students that might make it available for them to try. And you have to use caution. You can't just throw anything out there. You want to still lead in a logical progression, but asking what if questions helps them to find that progression on their own a little bit more, rather than getting stuck in, I have to do what my teacher says. And this is especially great for those teenage boys going through the change, because many times, and I've read about this lovely phase called puberphonia, which is just kind of a fun word to say, but it centers around, it's just basically the voice going through puberty, okay, how it phonates during puberty. And when you are going through this, girls and boys experience this, but boys tend to get really hung up in their head about it. And what I've read says that the mental component of puberphonia is actually worse than the physical growth of the vocal cords. And there's, I'm sure, more scientific research on that than I know at this time, but I think it's a fascinating concept. When you take a young man who is in the middle of his voice changing and he's embarrassed and he's going, oh, I have to sing in my choir, or I have to sing for this audition. And you know they've had this beautiful voice before they went through the change. And then their voice changes and they're cracking and flipping all over the place. And suddenly they're so embarrassed. They just don't know what to do. They are so afraid that if they crack in front of somebody, that their life will be over. Everyone will make fun of them. They're not going to get the part that they want. They're just devastated over the possibility of cracking. And so I like to say then them, well, what if you cracked? What would happen? And then have them say, well, so what? Life will go on and you're going to do great. And the more you can get them out of the mindset that something really bad will happen if they crack, and if they can get out of that mindset and realize that it's okay. It's just like learning to walk. You might fall sometimes, and it's just a little bit of imbalance. Once they accept that it's okay, and what if that happened? So what? Then they're free to actually start singing better. They're free to try the things that you ask them to do, and they will have more success doing them. So the what if concept works in pretty much every concept that you're trying to teach the voice. You could try it with any scale, any song. And instead of saying, do this, you just say, what if you tried this? And suddenly that opens up so many possibilities. They're not thinking of you as somebody telling them what they have to do. They're thinking of you as a guide, a coach, a mentor who knows better than they do and sees their value and wants to help guide them on the path to success. I hope it has been helpful to you. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please join us for our next master classes at IVTOM.org. You can register for them. We also have an incredible conference coming up with amazing, amazing teachers, scientists, medical professionals coming to teach us more about the voice and help us be better teachers and better singers too. I always learn something about my own voice along the way whenever we have an IVTOM conference. So please come. We have an in-person option, an online option. We would love to see you there. And it's going to be one big party. And anyway, if you would like to know more about IVTOM, check out the link, ivtom.org. You can find us on Facebook. You can also learn a little bit more about me if you want to at breakthrough-studios.com. I would love to see you there. Reach out with any questions to me or to any of the board members at ivtom.org. And we will see you soon. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Voice Teacher Podcast brought to you by IVTOM, International Voice Teachers of Mix. Your co-hosts are Sam Johnson and Amy Geddes. Learn more about IVTOM at ivtom.org and find Sam Johnson at vocalese.net and Amy Geddes at breakthrough-studios.com. Voiceover and theme song by Maz Mazak, and this podcast is edited by Amber. You have been listening to
The Voice Teacher Podcast.